Hi, this is Rob Commins with Tegile Systems. We're going to get started here in about 30 seconds. It looks like the attendee account is starting to ramp up nicely. Okay, we'll get started. My name is Rob Commins with Tegile Systems, and today we're going to talk about some interesting dynamics that are happening in the flash storage market, and talk about what that means in a rack scale design construct. What is rack scale design? Well, it's really kind of a few main tenets of how cloud scale, rack scale type computing is evolving, where we're looking for a massive amount of performance consolidated in a pool that can be allocated to different applications and workloads and different price performance ratios as well. And when you do that, of course, you have to be extremely agile in terms of provisioning resource, load balancing resource, and handling changes in the business cycle, and as projects change, or even as large projects as acquiring new companies, being able to absorb those new workloads, and then have the analytics available in an automated fashion or even an autonomic fashion, if you will, to get ahead of any challenges or problems before they occur. And those challenges could be where maybe some networking is having a problem, or just being able to very easily look forward and say, I'm going to need more resource in 90 or 120 days, so you can get in front of that challenge before it becomes a problem and the phone starts ringing from the end user base again. So when we look at flash, the market has kind of decided and figured out that yes, flash is far better than disk, and the economics have really come together now that the 4-year TCO of a flash system is actually lower than a disk-based system. And you can see that we can get applications running about 10 times faster than they used to on disk. So I'm going to use kind of a little transportation metaphor here. And flash is becoming very, very popular because it gets applications moving very quickly, just like a race car gets people moving from one point to start to finish very, very quickly. But things are changing already, and it's becoming very, very interesting. So extending that race car metaphor, I just had a NASCAR automobile on the screen. Now I've got a Formula One car. And the metaphor is extending to, we've got a new technology coming around the horizon, and I think you'll start seeing in an enterprise market probably the first half of 2017, called NVMe, Non-Volatile Memory Express. And this is going to take latency down another 80%. So a hard drive has latencies of about 10 milliseconds, or here 10,000 microseconds. SSDs have latencies today of about 1 millisecond or 1,000 microseconds. These NVMe SSDs are all the way down to 20 microseconds of latency. So it's going to have yet another massive order of magnitude change in the performance of applications. But as typical technology trends that happen, these NVMe drives are not cheap. So we're going to have to figure out how to balance that out. And there's ways to do that. But there's also other applications that might not be so latency sensitive. They're more, let's say, bandwidth sensitive. So what are we going to do about bandwidth if the price performance of this new flash technology is not going to make sense for other types of applications? Well, the good thing is there's high density flash coming out at the same time, where we're really looking at what I like to call cheap and deep flash. So the flash technology market is what I like to call bifurcating. We've got NVMe addressing extremely high performance and low latency, and high density for cost and bandwidth. Just like I've got here, we move away from the race cars where we can get one person from start to finish very quickly. A train is very, very good at high bandwidth, moving hundreds of people from the start to finish. So when we look at that, how can we pool those resources together productively? So if you step back and look at the storage market and how dramatically it's changed over the last 5 years. About 5 years, you started seeing hybrid storage systems crop up where we combined the performance of flash but used high capacity, high density disk to balance out that tension between price and performance. Then the flash market started getting more competitive, the cost came down, the NAND developers really started throwing Moore's Law out the window, and you started seeing the cost make sense. But again, now we're seeing bifurcation again. So now we've got what I like to call multi-tiered flash systems hitting the market. Here at Tegile, about a year ago, we came out with what we call our IntelliFlash HD that combined the highest performance, lowest latency flash SSDs we could find, and then combined them in a single system with the highest density, lowest cost flash we could find. And our software moves data in real time between these two different tiers. So we can balance out again that tension between price, performance, and economics. And what does that do for you? Now you've got capacity and performance at unprecedented scale. You've got low latency and throughput applications being able to be served by flash with extremely compelling economics. This IntelliFlash HD system I mentioned, at street price, at scale, can get to 50 cents per gigabyte, which is at or below most disk-based systems out in the market today. So again, that shift is happening right now. So we just were at VMworld in Las Vegas about a month ago, and we announced what we call our IntelliFlash high-density cloud platform. So what we're doing is now we're taking a typical dual controller, multi-tiered flash system, and we're adding scale out and scale up. So now this system can deliver flash performance and economics for what I like to call a private cloud. Now we can serve the highest performance, lowest latency, let's say ERP type applications businesses are running on, as well as be a repository for archive and the marketing's PowerPoint files and things like that, all on a single storage system. So we don't have to have all these multiple silos of technology for different types of applications. Let's take a little bit closer look at that. So you've got this distributed elastic scale out flash cluster with all of the, what I'll call enterprise capabilities that you're used to in enterprise class storage systems in terms of high availability, multi-pathing, multi-protocol access across both block and file protocols. So now, of course, again, we can have databases running over block, we can have file systems available for people on file shares, and anywhere in between. As well as all the data management features are required to protect all that, and also drive economics even more aggressively with deduplication, compression, other technologies such as that. So now we can again scale out to millions of IOPS on the top end of these tiers, and then petabytes of capacity on the capacity layer, driving that balance in between both of these economics and performance layers. And we use a SAS Fabric today between those. You can get at this types of system over Fiber Channel, iSCSI, NFS, CIFS, SMB3. Again, a whole host of ways to access this concurrently. So let's look at how that can build out over time. An entry-level system, and it's kind of funny to say an entry-level system will do 2 million IOPS. That's quite a bit of performance. But if you think about consolidating all of the applications in a data center into a single private cloud platform, that's not a bad place to start. And you can see you can capacity bias, performance bias, or you can see a max configuration here going up to over 20 million IOPS and 6 petabytes of capacity available to the enterprise. And if you'd like, I forgot to mention, if there's a Q&A section off to the side of your viewer. If you've got any questions you'd like to ask, feel free. We've got a moderator standing by helping me identify questions. So now, getting back to the presentation content, look at what we can do from a density standpoint. Lots of times you may have seen charts like this over the past few years where flash vendors are comparing flash density to disk-based systems. This is looking at high-density flash compared to what I'll call today's garden variety flash. So we're putting disk off to the side here. So now you can get petabytes of capacity, millions of IOPS in a simple 5U package. And it's phenomenal compared to what we're used to. You can see other systems out there requiring multiple racks and tens of systems that are bolted together logically or even physically sometimes to get to those types of performance and capacity factors. So amazing savings from an operational standpoint. And I think my slide, yeah, right here, this is one of my favorite slides. It really brings it home. So now we've got a half a petabyte of capacity, millions of IOPS, and it runs off of less power than a hairdryer. So if you think about the total cost of ownership of this from a power, space, cooling standpoint, we can really drive some phenomenal economics with this bifurcation in flash that's leveraged in a single platform like this. So when you get to this type of economics, you can also drive the management cost, the overhead cost of managing storage way down. It's because, and I'll show you here, you can take a look here. Now I've got a single 4-node cluster that's got both performance and capacity media accessed across all common storage protocols on a single pane of glass. Whereas before I might have to have an all-flash array, a disk-based array, maybe an archive class array, and those may or may not be from the same vendor. They've got different tools, different ways to protect them from a replication and backup standpoint. Now you can consolidate that and really make managing the enterprise data center much easier than we've been able to in the past. And here's that, I mentioned those autonomic, what I like to call analytics. All of that can be managed and watched across here. So now you can essentially watch your entire data center storage and manage it from a single screen. Lots of our customers like to just keep this screen up on a monitor on the side of the network operations center, and just out of the corner of the eye, they can watch and make sure that their entire enterprise storage is in shape. And then we also have found that over time, of course, product is nice, but it's how you take care of it from a vendor standpoint that is very important. So we've got this analytics I mentioned. You have to have worldwide support that's driven by those analytics, so we can take human intervention out of that. And then if we take a look at the 5 top factors that people measure technology and specifically storage: performance, availability, data reduction, and several other factors, and we guarantee that in writing. So it's becoming more and more common with it. And I recommend that when you're looking at new storage, ask for written guarantees, because you should be able to get that from your vendors now. And then we've got another neat program available, especially important with these cloud platform type environments. We call lifetime storage, where we look at how fast flash is advancing and the costs are reducing, and we're going to forward price either 3 or 5 years out based on your finance team's depreciation schedule, and we will actually bury the price of that array cost 3 or 5 years out into the maintenance contract of today's purchase, and in 3 or 5 years out, you'll get effectively a no-cost technology upgrade that you paid for approximately 40 to 50 cents on the dollar today, amortized over 36 or 60 months. So it's essentially a free tech refresh, and you can reinvest in that same tech refresh So I like to say this system here is the last storage system you'll ever have to buy, because there's not going to be any more spiky capital expenditures made anymore. So if you think about why people go to the cloud, they want that infinite resource, and they don't want spiky capital expense. So now you can actually bring that back home and get the performance, security, and control, and that peace of mind that you've got that control, especially after, for example, last week we saw those massive outages in the East Coast of the United States. You don't want that obviously to happen to your enterprise. So being able to maintain control is extremely important when you consolidate all of the applications in the data center onto a single unified platform. So again, what this looks like is, and I'll show you real quick, buy once, refresh your storage forever. So you buy now, you can add technology, you can add new features over time, but every 3 or 5 years you get that refresh cycle. So it's a very nice, predictable way to manage your infrastructure. So that's just a quick view of what the new advancements in Flash are enabling enterprises. I have a couple questions in here. I'll hit those real quick. Rob, this is very interesting, and we look at private cloud as well as leveraging public cloud. What are some of the best ways to handle that? Well, I'll tell you what, as I mentioned when I first started the presentation, we launched this new platform at VMworld in Las Vegas last month. And at that event, VMware announced some very interesting vCloud hybrid cloud functionality. So my recommendation would look at a higher level virtualization and orchestration layer that can handle on-premise as well as public cloud, and it really makes management of a hybrid cloud very, very easy. Here's another interesting question. Rob, you mentioned replication as one of the things that become important. How is that managed when you've got different classes of applications riding on the same system? Great question. So a good replication tool set should allow you to set different policies for replication and retention policies based on workloads, based on applications, based on maybe even legislative requirements. For example, in healthcare, you have to keep some records for 7 years, some records in, let's say, heart scans, things like that need to be saved forever, effectively. So you're able to set up what I'll call a heterogeneous replication environment out of that single tool set and be able to manage that very, very simply, as opposed to having one set of applications managing ERP, medical records, and another one for lower end archive class type workloads. Another question, a little bit more on the technology side again. You talked about different protocols. Can those different protocols, that's Fiber Channel, iSCSI, and file protocols, NFS, CIFS, SMB, can those run on the same box concurrently? And the answer is yes. And actually, I think that's an imperative for a consolidation play like this, because you've probably got tons of, especially in the larger enterprises, tons of different storage systems that you're consolidating that are running all these different protocols. You need that single platform to be able to absorb those and not force a massive networking change just to consolidate your storage. So let's see, a couple of questions. Will this, here's an administrative question. Rob, will these presentations be available later? I'd like to share this with some of my peers. Absolutely. So after this webinar is over, you will receive an email within a day, and you'll have a copy of this presentation available to you. Okay, I've got no other questions. This is kind of a quick and dirty webinar. I know that the BrightTalk platform asks for 45 minutes of your day, so I'm happy to give you a good 20, 25 of that back to you today. So have a great day, and thanks a lot. Bye-bye.